Hi there, Calaveras County. This is Morgan Gache, CEO with the Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce. And I'm super excited today to have two individuals from the SBDC. I have Nate McBride and also Trudy Lackey on the line. And what I'm going to do is, we have a lot of resources right now that are kind of being thrown at us, resources available to business owners and to individuals. And my goal, kind of what we did with Carrie Ellenwood with the SBA, is that I'm trying to give an opportunity for you to see the services kind of unboxed and hear from the horse's mouth the resources that are available to you. And my goal is that this helps make it a little easier to navigate, a little easier to understand. And so what I'd like to do is I'm going to do a screen share here shortly so it can show their page. I just wanted to do my little introduction first. But Trudy and Nate, tell me a little bit about the SBDC. We had Carrie Ellenwood on the other day to kind of talk about the dynamic with SBA and what's rolling out there, especially with EIDL loans. What's the relationship between the SBDC and the SBA, and what is your role with the SBDC?
Yeah, good. Hello, everybody in Calaveras County. This is Nate McBride. I'm the director of the Delta College Small Business Development Center. And small business development centers are funded in part by the Small Business Administration, primarily to provide assistance in the territories that they cover. And so our particular Small Business Development Center covers Calaveras County as well as Amador, Alpine, and San Joaquin counties. And so our main office is in Stockton, which is where I'm at. But we also have a number of consultants that we use to deliver services, and Trudy is our boots on the ground in Calaveras County. Many people certainly could turn to Trudy for help, and then Trudy or their clients can also reach out to me and my office and the other team members that I have to deliver services to small businesses. And those core services are really business advising, and sometimes training events that we get involved in, like we have with the Chamber in the past. But the advising or consulting is really focused on different aspects of starting and running a business. And so it might be business plans, it might be marketing, it might be finance, it might be startup, it might be human resources, tax questions, it might be a variety of things. But certainly in today's environment, which I think we're probably going to be talking about a little bit more, is this COVID-19 crisis and the way that's impacting people. And so what we're trying to do with that certainly is just try to help people find accurate and timely information and figure out a reasonable response to this. So happy to have the opportunity to try to answer questions or share more of that information today, or people can contact either Trudy or myself from my office to get some help.
You know what, I'll ask you this right now, and I will post this also along with this webinar, but can you give us your contact information right now so that people can get in touch with you?
Certainly. If they want to do it by phone, for the office in Stockton, the main office, it's 209-954-5089. If they want to apply online through our website, it's sanjoaquinsbdc.org.
Okay, my direct contact information is 209-770-6062. You You can text or call me there, or you can email at trualila@gmail.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Trudy. Yeah, so what I want to do is, it's funny because both conversations with both Trudy and Nate that I've had in the past is we are looking forward to having some trainings soon when things have cleared a little bit with the SBDC at the Chamber and having that relationship. But right now, you're right. The focus is really hyper-focused onto COVID-19 and how it's impacting businesses. And coming from the place that right now, as you both might imagine, it's heavy, it's hard, and businesses are struggling with a number of different factors that make it really hard to find clarity in what to do. And so, Trudy, maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the ways that you can help businesses right now that are feeling that sense of overwhelm and not sure what the next steps are and what to do.
Sure. I mean, for most people, they're wanting to apply for some funding to cover employee costs or lost merchandise, or whatever their needs are. And myself and the people at the main office in Stockton can certainly help with that, or if they're having any problems, if for some reason they do get turned down and they want to reapply or appeal, we can help with also. And I've talked to a few business owners in our area, and just to, kind of take that breath and look for ways that maybe you can provide a service or take the shutdown break for a little while and then figure out how to come back stronger.
Yeah. That's, sometimes we just have to kind of take a beat and then maybe have someone that can give that guidance and kind of help us see what's next. And the beautiful thing that's available with SBDC is the business consulting, free business consulting with Trudy Lackey. And she's local. She's here in Calaveras County, which is amazing. And we're looking forward to connecting businesses with you, Trudy, in that sense. Now, I want to dig into the SBA loans a little bit. And I think just because this is all happening, evolving in the last, 24 hours. And so it continues to evolve. And I wanted to ask both of you, right now, are you seeing a definite increase in businesses that are applying for these EIDL loans?
Oh, absolutely. We've received just a ton of phone calls and online requests for people just trying to get clarity on what it is, how to apply, how to fill out the forms, how to submit the information. Mm-hmm. So, and as we talk with other organizations who are involved in economic development or services to small businesses or lenders, there's most business people are scrambling, trying to figure out what to do, like we kind of said, and a lot of them, because it's the thing that is available right now in one of the earlier declarations by the federal government, that this SBA disaster loan is available for people to apply to already.
Yeah. Now, Carrie Ellenwood broke it down a little bit for us, and she did reference you a couple of times as, the support and really the legs of helping this happen. It Yep. sounds like the process in order to get it, if I decided today to sign up for the loan, in the time to receive it is approximately between 3 and 4 weeks right now, which I'm sure is very fluid because of the volume that's coming in. My question for you is that as a business owner, if you're trying to determine, if you're kind of on the line and thinking, I don't know, I don't want to have a loan, or I don't want to have another loan, perhaps, I've heard that story already. What advice can you give?
There's a couple of things that come to my mind, and one is just whether or not, a business person has a pretty good handle on what their financial situation is. Do I have some money to try to pay some essential costs to keep going, or what do I need to do in the really near term to try to address the situation as best I can, and then try to put in other possibilities as they come available, and to pursue those really kind of at the same time. And so what I mean by that is, if a business had some funds that they thought maybe they could get a little bit down the road, they may decide whether or not they're going to, try to keep open on a limited basis if they can, or if they're just going to shut down for a while and try to really hold on to cash to see what they can do with it in the future. So businesses are having to kind of make those tough calls. But because of the time frame to get the disaster loans, what we're telling a lot of people is there's no cost or commitment to submit the application for the SBA disaster loan. So it's one way to try to pursue something that might be available within that time frame, and might be one solution if you can't find some other solutions. or come up with some other way to financially survive. So because there's no cost to originate or apply, and you're not committing to the loan when you make the application, then it's not a bad step, regardless of what else you might be able to bring to bear. Or like even with today's notices and information coming out about the additional stimulus that the federal government is putting in place today, that the president is expected to sign or may have already signed, there's some additional things in that legislation that are going to provide some additional financial resources potentially for small businesses, but they're a little more targeted and specific than the SBA disaster loan. So it sounds like they're going to be involved in trying to keep payroll going and some other things like that. So there may be some additional things available, but for a lot of businesses, the timing of how soon it could come is another part of the thing that everybody's trying to figure out. So I certainly can understand someone being hesitant to take on more debt, but you know, if it really is a choice of survival or not survival, that may be a tough choice that somebody has to make. But maybe applying for that possibility might not be a prudent step.
Sure.
Like Nate said. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that, Trudy. Yeah, I was just thinking, you know, with what, 3.75% or 2.75 if it's a nonprofit, it's a pretty unheard of interest rate. And so, you know, in some ways it almost seems like, you know, right now, until we have a better grasp of what's going on, right now we're just, you know, projecting, and that's all it is. And we're in such an unprecedented time that if it provides that ease of mind, and you know, you can pay it off early, right? No penalties for that. So, you know, it might be a good idea for someone like that. Now, let me ask you, since you guys are seeing an increase in volume in these applications, are you seeing any recurring errors or things that come up that are preventing people from continuing with the process or having to reapply?
I don't think we reached the reapply point yet, for the most part, just because it's taken, you know, the SBA 2 or 3 weeks to get back on most loan applications. So most of them are still in process. But for me anyway, probably the components about that loan application that Carrie probably at least touched on are both the requirement for a business to provide enough historical financial information, either through their tax returns or current year profit loss statement or whatever, to show that they have an ongoing profitable business so they can afford to make a loan payment is one requirement. And so there's some information in the application they have to provide to demonstrate that. And then the second component of that is just trying to figure out how to also communicate enough information to show that there's been an economic impact to the business. So that's either, you know, a reduction in sales already, probably in the month of March, if not before, and or trying to communicate either canceled contracts or business or anticipated reduction in income going forward to try to demonstrate that impact to the business. It's another part of the loan process. And then also finally just trying to figure out what the loan amount might be based on what their monthly operating expenses, which we're trying to help clients understand is usually just, you know, what's your monthly overhead or your monthly operating costs. And then there's going to be some kind of time frame attached to that, like maybe 3 months or 4 months or 6 months to come up with the loan amount. But that usually is determined with the loan staff if they're going to get approved.
So I've had a number of people reaching out to me, as you might imagine, lately, as I'm sure to you guys as well. And, you know, people are a little concerned, they're scared. And we seem to have quite a few outliers. And I'm sure that's going to happen. And it's funny because even 24 hours ago, it seemed like 501c6 nonprofits were out of the loop for the EIDL loans. And then just today they surfaced up and they can be. So things are continuing to evolve. My question would be, you know, I have someone that reached out to me that they're in year 2 of their business and year 1 was at a loss. And so there was a feeling of, well, I might as well not apply for this loan because I was at a loss. And so I'm probably not going to get it. Any feedback on that?
Well, I mean, in business lending, recency of financial history kind of trumps what the history in the past has been. So if you were profitable in your second year, even though you may have shown a loss in the first year, then I would say that's probably not going to be a huge issue, and really probably not that unexpected. You know, people who deal in business loans know that businesses don't always make money in their first year, sometimes in the first couple of years. It just depends on the business. So yeah, that more recent year in my mind is the more critical piece of information.
Yeah.
And,
So,
you know, if you have good projections and a good solid plan, it can show maybe why you weren't profitable the first year and what's happened in the second. And I did just want to add that we listened to a webinar yesterday, both Nate and I were on it, from SBA, and they were really encouraging on people applying. You know, like you said, there's no fee, there's no, if you want to pay back the loan early, there's no prepayment fee. And surprisingly, because they're so swamped, but they were really encouraging on if you think you have this need and, you know, you can show that you should go ahead and apply.
yeah. So let me ask you this, Trudy. You know, you've obviously been doing this. You've been here with us prior to COVID-19. And what are you thinking you're going to be seeing as far as people reaching out to you? What kinds of people should be reaching out to you right now through this process?
I think it's going to mostly be people that are looking at this loan. I mean, normally I work with people who want to start a business. That's my biggest clientele is people who are new, they want to start something, and I work with them on business plan and P&L and things like that. Or someone who's maybe newer in business and wants some help with local marketing and other issues. But I think right now, although there may be some that are in business that might like some help in thinking out of the box and creatively and alternatively on what else they can do to maybe keep their business going for a while. But you know, most of it's going to be people that are looking for the loan and a way to keep going or to get back on their feet.
Yeah. So going back to what you were talking about in the webinar that you were on with the SBA, Carrie's reference to us before was yeah, the same sentiment that you know, it's not going to cost you anything to apply. It's worth trying to see, and then even working, you know, with SBDC to see how they can help you in case, you know, maybe you're filling it out wrong or maybe there's an issue there. I've had someone asking me, they had previous SBA loans that are still active and open. And so should they apply for this, even if they have that, is it even a possibility to have? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh yeah, it's still a possibility, whether somebody has an SBA loan or any other loan. I mean, the only issues that could come up is if you weren't current in paying an SBA loan, that might be an issue, but yeah, existing debt is not preclusion in any way in applying.
So with the terms of the EIDL loan, when are the payments starting? Do they have that pushed out at all, or how soon would those start if they were to get this?
They do have that pushed out. They have automatically available for any businesses who wish to have it this way, 11 months of no interest after loan disbursement, and then start paying in the 12th month. But I believe, and that certainly gives businesses time, you know, interest accrues if you take it that far out, but because the rate's not huge, hopefully that's not going to be a huge cost to a business. But again, because there's not a prepayment penalty and the repayment is flexible, it's my understanding businesses can start paying sooner than those 12 months if they chose to, and even pay the loan off quicker if they chose to.
Yeah.
But there is that deferral available.
Now with the EIDL loans, and we did get a little bit of a breakdown on this, it's for the covering the overhead that you have from month to month that you're losing right now. And so a big part of a lot of people's overhead is typically payroll. And so can you speak, and I didn't ask you about this ahead of time, and I apologize, but the relationship right now with EDD that we have for laying off employees, if need be, is, and even work share programs that they have where they're covering as much as 60% of a person's hours if they're cut back due to COVID-19. Are there any contingencies where you're not having a payroll right now because EDD is covering it or because you had to lay off your staff, but can you still account for those monies as part of your typical overhead despite that?
I mean, I believe that the COVID use of funds could be for payment of wages and associated costs if a business was still having those. There might be some determination of that at the time the loan might be closed based on information the SBA might ask for from a business owner in terms of what else they may have available to them to offset some of those costs.
Sure.
And the other biggest one, I think, is just in this legislation that's come out today, there's talk of some possible loans that I think might even be forgiven. I hesitate to kind of say this because, again, we got to find out what that law actually says.
Right.
But there might even be some loans that if businesses either keep their employees or if they bring back their employees and pay those wages for a period of time, that those loans might even be forgiven for that. So whether it's through the SBA disaster loan or this new one that's coming, I believe there's some possibilities to help businesses pay payroll on the associated costs.
You guys are both thoroughly knowledgeable in all of this area that for a lot of people seems really confusing and cloudy. And so what is something that you can advise the average business owner right now about what they should be looking at and looking for throughout this COVID-19 process?
I think for me, it's just trying to get down to what are the key things that you need to survive and what do you need to work on to try to make that happen. Whether that's trying to figure out the financial plan aspects of that, whether it's to try to pivot and figure out how you can keep trying to do some form of business in some form or fashion if you can, and just planning to survive in the shorter term. If businesses have some means, or maybe the loan comes through and they've got those immediate needs kind of addressed, then the questions are probably going to be more starting to try to look ahead a little bit as to how a business can kind of reopen or re-engage and be ready to get going as fast as they can once all this settles down a little bit. But the biggest thought I have is just in the near term. And so business people just got to hunker down and try to get focused as focused as they can on what some of those key things are. But if they're trying to get some of these other things figured out, like the loan application or dealing with EDD or other issues that they're just not familiar with, then my best suggestion is, reach out and ask somebody for some information or some direction.
Yeah.
Us maybe for the disaster loan, your office to get some local resources, their EDD reps. It's just to get on the phone and ask questions and try to get some help and direction on trying to deal with some of the things you may have to deal with that you're not as familiar with or comfortable with.
Yeah.
I agree with Nate. Even let's say we don't know, we know a lot of the resources, and we can at least helpfully connect people to where they need to go or where it would be the most helpful. In most cases we could probably help, but if not, we can point them in a right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an amazing point that you're bringing up, Trudy, because one thing that I appreciate so much about our community and our network is that I'm basically hearing the same thing echoed through. All of us are trying to arm ourselves with, maybe not the full knowledge, but at least who knows the knowledge. That way we can connect them with the right people. And that's such an asset to have. So I think the important piece here is, if you have questions, reach out to someone. Reach out, if you know the person to reach out to them. If not, though, still reach out to one of us, because more than likely we're going to be able to direct you to the right person. So I'm glad that you brought that up there. Now, I want to wrap this up by asking if you guys have anything that you want to talk to specifically around this, or something that's going to be important to think about, coming out of COVID-19, right? Not just the, being shut down, but what happens once we open back up.
For me, I think part of that might be, for business owners, they deal with these type of issues all the time, of having to try to figure out how to pivot and adapt to whatever's going on. And it seems like there's always a little bit of that, but this is just as an extreme case of that as anybody can imagine. And so I think if businesses are going to be able to survive, and I hope most of them will, if they're able to survive, they're going to come out of this on the other end having had the experience of having to figure out how to do something that was very difficult and very unexpected, and to hold on to those lessons, and to then look at your business in ways of how can you have that same kind of response to figuring out what's the most important things that need to be done right now for my business to thrive and grow, and how can I apply some of those same, laser-like focus areas of my business to try to gear back up, because as much as it's hard to slow down or shut down a business, it's almost as equally as hard in some respects to crank it back up again and to get it going again. So there's going to be plenty of work to do. Hopefully that'll be a little happier work as business picks up again and people start to spend money. A lot of them are going to have pent-up demand for things, and they're going to want to buy and spend on a number of things when this starts to die down. And the businesses that are ready to provide that as the fastest are probably going to be ahead of the game in many respects. It's kind of hard to even think in those terms probably at this point in time.
Right,
but I think if we can figure out ways to survive and get, even a few weeks down the road and feel like we've got a path to survival, then maybe some of those thoughts of how am I going to ramp up when the time comes, maybe it'd be a little better focus. But today it's probably survival. Hopefully in a few weeks or a month from now, it's going to be, how do I ramp back up?
Yeah, I love that.
It may sound a little strange coming from a business consultant, but several people that I've talked to, you have to remember to just breathe, and that, things do change, and we are right in the thick of it right now, but there are a lot of services out there to help, and opportunities with the loans and maybe grants. And if we can take advantage of those. And then, like Nate said, once we get through the survival, kind of start thinking, well, what did you learn? What were your customers really wanting, or what did they really like about what you were doing? Did you stay in touch at all? Were you able to provide any service? And some businesses may be able to and some not, but it also gives us a chance to kind of take another look and come back even stronger and with maybe some new ideas.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you both for sharing that. And again, just to recap, you guys all see my screen share right now, and this shows the SBDC website. So it's sanjoaquinsbdc.org/COVID-19. And this is going to have resources directly related to COVID-19. And thank you both so much for being a part of this call today and giving Calaveras County a little bit more of an insight into what we can, be looking at as far as the EIDL loans, what we can be expecting, and what we can be hopeful for. I always like to end, our conversations here because it is important to focus on that. So can each of you just give me, as a closing thought, something that you are hopeful for through this process?
Do you have thoughts, Trudy?
Go for it.
I was going to let Trudy go first, unless she wants me to.
That I've said before, but hopefully our businesses will make it. And, if you're able to, as a community member, if you're able to do a takeout order from a restaurant or do some online business. You know, everybody's struggling right now, but if you're able to do that, you know, help your businesses now, help them get through it. And hopefully we're all gonna make it.
Yeah.
For me, I guess maybe it's because I'm a little bit older, but I think of a little bit of history. I can think of, like, even as recently as maybe 2008, 2009 with the financial cliff we drove off, and how people just thought, you know, there's no way I can survive coming out of a foreclosure or losing my house. There's no way I can survive with the things that are going on. Or even, I mean, you can go back as far as you want and find all kinds of instances in history when things really were bad economically and in other ways. But somehow people got to the other end of that. Many times it was painful, but we did survive. We did come out of that. We can recover. And so my thought is, because of that, we will recover. This will be painful. It will be a lot of hard work. It'll be many sleepless nights and stressful days, but we will recover from this. We will survive in some form or fashion, and we'll get through this. It's just going to be a question of how long it takes us and how painful it is, but we'll survive. And so try to hold on to that hope and optimism. Try to tackle the situation with the best energy and focus and purpose as you can. Reach out and be a resource for others to the extent that you can, and hang in there. We're gonna make it through this.
Nate McBride, Trudy Lackey, thank you so much for representing the SBDC for us, and I wish you both some healthy and sane days ahead of you.
Thanks, Morgan. You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for getting the word out, Morgan, and trying to help small businesses in Calaveras County. We love you guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.